see me. There you go. Hey, I've done this enough to where I shouldn't have any tech problems, but here we go again. But nice to see you tonight. This August the 30th. We're finally ending August. I say finally, but it kind of feels like it just started. But 8 o'clock on a Wednesday, once again, another Wednesday. It's going to be up to 5 years since I started doing videos. I love doing these things and I will continue to do these things as long as you guys keep enjoying them. So tonight we're going to be talking all about a lot of different things about moving to Virginia Beach, into the area. I've got some thoughts about strategies about moving in this fall, and then going into 2024. There's some market adjustments that need to be made. All the things from the last 2 or 3 years, you can kind of set aside to a certain degree, incorporate some of the things we may have learned in those 2 or 3 years and incorporate it to now. But for the most part, there are definitely some changes that you've seen and probably the national news and even local news may have talked about. And there are some things that you can attribute nationally to the local market, but there are also some differences too. So we'll talk about some things involving real estate here. And then also, again, helping you move to the area, some tips that I think might help not only get you a better house for the price, but also maybe specific types of houses maybe to look for to get that better price. And so we'll get into that too. And I'll, of course, answer all of your questions and talk about some things I'm going to guesstimate and foresee what I think might happen in the next few months too. So feel free, as you're watching, let me know, where are you guys from? As people gather in here, I love finding out where people are located, whether you're California, Maine, overseas, wherever. I love hearing about where you guys are from and the reasons why people move here, because there are a lot of reasons why people decide to move here. A lot of times it's work. A lot of times it's because they want to be close to the beach. A lot of times it's because of family, and it also is for other reasons. Like, for example, they like the balance of living in a few hours from DC, a few hours from the South. And I've got this massive text. Can't see my face, can it? Hey, Tyrell, that text is massive. I don't know how to change that. So you're going to see me with a blue chin for the foreseeable future. But hey, Tyrell, good to see you. And yeah, funny you mentioned Richmond. A lot of interesting things happening in Richmond. I know some people that are moving here from Richmond. That market's changed there for sure. But there's some specific nuances here that I think are interesting in this area. That I find that people that are coming here, they're coming here, because they want to come here. They're coming and searching for a specific kind of house and a specific kind of situation. And they want to be closer to something that they like, the beach, for example. And I've done it as well. Bought a house in Richmond, or you mean have moved, or are you looking to move to Virginia Beach? Anyway, feel free to discuss as you like. But anyway, people that are coming here or have been coming here, if they're coming by choice, they're often coming here by choice. Because it's a very affordable place to live compared to other parts of the country, because it has we have a lot of different things here to offer for the price. However, I've noticed the prices compared to other parts of the country balance out. I wouldn't say it's balanced fully, but you're not getting as low of a price now compared to other parts of the country, as I've been noticing. So, for example, Virginia Beach right now, median sales prices, we're talking 430, 435. That's not, 3 years ago, that was 370, 360. So they've shot up quite a bit. And that's happened a lot in other places too. But I do think that the significant benefit to moving here just for the sake of it being cheap is still there, but not as much as it used to be. And so I think what a good way of saying this would be, if you're coming here for like the primo house, primo location in Virginia Beach, primo, brand new construction for a cheap price, that doesn't really exist here now. And so I think really it's not a matter of, I'd say, hey, good idea to come if you like this type of environment, the beach and the access to the beach and access to the, again, not just, the for a job or whatnot, but the access to businesses and whatnot in the Atlantic seaboard, it's nice to be in this area, but you have to be a little bit more specific, a little bit more precise as to the spots that I think you might like the best for the price. So we're going to talk about a few spots too that if you want to move to Virginia Beach and you are not sure if the prices in Virginia Beach are too high, like so for example, if you want a 5-bedroom house, 3,500 square feet, and maybe you want to pay like, 725, something like that. You can get that in Virginia Beach, but you can get more in other parts of the area. And the same goes with if you're paying 350, you're paying 475. All those areas, all those price points, incrementally, you're going to find that I think there are some spots you might like better, and it will depend also on the type of house that you like. So uh, we're going to first start with that. Like I say, okay, if you're going to be moving here, where are you planning to move? And so I say, I'll put the post questions. There you go. So if you're planning to move here, where are you planning to move? And a lot of people decide that they want to move closer to the beach or around the beach. And great idea. And so there are a lot of beaches to choose from, beaches that you can have relative access to. But if, for example, you want a pretty large house and you don't want to spend $1 million or $1.5 million right near the beach, what are those best access points? Again, it doesn't have to be 1.5 million. It could be 300,000. Where are those access points that give you access to the beach or access to Virginia Beach or even access to downtown Norfolk, but you're not paying as much for the primo spot? Well, if you look on the map, I'm going to share my screen. And on the map, I'm going to show you some examples of spots that I like a lot for the price. And so if you can see this on the map, so you zoom out, Virginia Beach is pretty big. And there are a lot of parts of Virginia Beach, and I'll get to that are, I think, pretty valuable to consider. But there are some spots that I really like that I'm really digging for the price and for potential appreciation. The number one spot right now that I think is, whether it be, I think, say from 375 to even 350 up to about 750, I'm liking Suffolk right now. I'll show you what I'm talking about, and not just any part of Suffolk, because if you look at Suffolk, look how big Suffolk is. This is Suffolk. Suffolk's massive. Not all of Suffolk, because if you go to all of Suffolk, you could find yourself in Holland down here, driving an hour and 20 minutes down to the beach. You know what I'm saying? That's not what I'm talking about. The parts I'm thinking about are anywhere from the northeastern section, like over near, this is called Harborview right here, if you can see my mouse. And then going further south from there, over, this is Bridge Road, up through here and up towards Crittenden, even towards Carrollton. Carrollton, I would even mention Smithfield. It's a little bit more of a drive. I mean, you're talking an hour, and it's over an hour to get to the beach, so it's not super convenient. But Carrollton and also Crittenden over towards, there's a place called Cedar Point that I'm starting to like a lot, and there's new construction over here. So if you want newer houses, and then going south towards Bridge Road near Bennett's Creek, there's some newer construction down this side right here. You see Bennett's Creek right here. So close to a park. Anywhere from the 5s in here, the 6s, new construction in the 7s. 6s also in and around Chesapeake, Suffolk. The further away from this section here that you go, like further away into more of the country, rural parts of town, you'll be paying less for the same amount of house. So that's where it's like, okay, is it worth it or not? But if you want something new, you want something that, buying a house, a newer house, for example, a newer house in Bennett's Creek for $550, move that over to Virginia Beach, it's going to be $715, or $685, $740. So that's a significant difference in price. And so there are different pros and cons to being in Suffolk. It's not for everybody, but if you're okay with this drive, let's just say Bennett's Creek Landing to Chicks Beach. 37 minutes to Chicks Beach. Now that's, there's differences to that too. That's at the landing, sorry, but it's the same general area time frame. 37 minutes there, probably about 40 minutes or so to the actual beach. I'd give a few more minutes for traffic, but that's not too crazy. There are tolls to factor in. So you're probably paying about $1.75 each way ish. But you're going to be saving some time, or you can go around the south way towards 664, which is almost the same amount of time. And that there are no tolls there. So you don't have to pay tolls, is what I'm saying. There are multiple ways to get from Suffolk over to the oceanfront or to Virginia Beach. Downtown Norfolk, going to be 20, 23 minutes. And depending on where you are, it could be a little closer, faster than that, because one of the benefits to being in Suffolk is you can go from Suffolk over 164 and go right into the Midtown Tunnel over into Ghent, into Lambert's Point, Larchmont, in downtown Norfolk in a matter of minutes. So I like a lot of Suffolk in this part of Suffolk, Northeast Suffolk, Carrollton, for this reason. And so if you're coming from a very congested part of the country, you might find that 35, 45 minutes to get to the prime spot that you might want to be may not be that bad. And you can also get to, the downtown part of the area in probably half that time. Now, that does not mean you can't just drive. So there are things in Suffolk. It's not like this is all country land. Grocery stores, shopping, there's a lot of stuff up and down near 664, Chesapeake Square Mall, which is down in this area near Western Branch. This whole area here, I am a fan of too, because you can, you're not driving into like far out in the middle of nowhere and then have to drive 30 minutes to get to anything. It's not that kind of a thing. But what it'll do is it will feel more country. So if you don't want the country, that's something that you might not like as much, just because it's the rural part of town. Like, let me drop a pin. I'll show you. Like Route 17, this is what Route 17 is like. There's a car wash. So there you go. But you notice a lot of new stuff. I say a lot of new stuff. New things are popping up, and it's not uncommon for new apartments, new construction to come up. Like, this was all mostly country and farmland for a long time, and now that's over time changing, and that's kind of the trend for Suffolk. So I would say if you're looking for something that's more affordable in a newer construction vibe, I would check out Suffolk for just considering the interest rates being what they are. Now, I'm going to get to that in a minute one also as well. Tyrell, what's the best part of Virginia Beach to move to? How is the Sandy area? So when you say Sandy area, do you mean areas near the beach or a specific neighborhood? Can you add some more info to that? But best part of Virginia Beach to move, yeah, I guess there's a lot of different variables there as far as like what you might like and not like. If you're looking for best spot, like bang for buck price, everything all considered, I'm a huge fan of the southwestern part of Virginia Beach. And so briefly go back to the map. How do I go back here? Okay, there's that, and there's that. Back to my street view. Okay, what's happening? Why is this hard? There we go. Okay, so the southwestern part of Virginia Beach is extremely convenient. You've got more options for smaller houses in this side, and I'm talking about southwestern. I'm talking about even anywhere near Kempsville, anywhere near Acredale, anywhere near. There's some smaller neighborhoods in here that are like Salem Lakes or woods down south. There's Lake James. There is Brigadoon. Oh, one of my favorites around Brigadoon near Tallwood High School. So a lot of neighborhoods that are like 350, 450, 525 in that bracketed range. You'll find a lot of good options in the southwestern part, and it's very established. But they're older houses, and I say that would be probably the drawback. If you want newer houses, I would say there'd be a pivot. I'd say go over to the southeastern part of Virginia Beach. The drawback from there is that you're going to get some newer houses built in the 80s and the 90s, and even newer construction. If you're okay with paying upwards of, I'd say, 6s and up, you get some, like one of the prime school districts in southeastern Virginia Beach, one of the prime locations for even to the beach. You can get to the ocean front in like 15 minutes in a lot of places, if not sometimes less than that. Great options for shopping. Red Mill Commons, Strawbridge, some shopping centers around there. Great like central spots. You can just live and develop your whole life down in the southeastern part. The two drawbacks. One is going to be jet noise. Jet noise is going to reign in a lot of these parts of this part of town. So, if jet noise is a problem, I wouldn't focus on this area as much. I'd check the AICUZ, ACUZ, jet jet noise zone map. That was hard. And look, and you'll see some color coded. Well, it's big circles. It's basically big circles that show you, based on the darkness of colors, how loud likely or how likely the jet noise will often be in those specific areas. So if you're looking at Oceania, just consider the closer you are to Oceania, generally speaking, you're going to have more issues with jet noise. Generally speaking, the reason I say generally is because see where these runways are. Part of the access or the say access, I guess there's access to the noise. Access implies that you're wanting it, but the closer you are to the runway directions, the more times you probably hear the jets fly. So if they're flying, in towards one side or the other, then you'll probably be hearing it over top of you more frequently in those areas. So just kind of check that out too. And you'll hear more or less jets based on the direction or where you are in relation to the landing strips, depending on which season that you're in. So if you're in the north part of Virginia Beach, like above the jets, like over here, you'll probably be coming. Let's see. They'll be flying. I think it should be flying in the wintertime. They'll be flying from the south to the north, and I believe from the north to the south in the summertime. They do it based on how the wind currents are. And so you can confirm that. I need to go back and look to make sure. But my point is that as the wind changes directions, they change direction. The planes will change directions too. So it will be louder or not as loud depending on which part of the time period that you're in. But anyway, big one's jet noise. Number 2 is going to be see where you are in relation to the rest of the area. You're in the deep corner of Virginia Beach. Driving from here over to Norfolk, it's like 35 minutes. I'm just curious. I mean, this might be bad television, if you will. I'm just going to say downtown Norfolk. I'm going to guess 34 minutes. Okay, 29 minutes, 26 minutes. Okay, I guess there was no traffic there too. So, yeah, I guess no traffic, 8:15 on Eastern time. I could see that, I guess. But I'd say give yourself at least 30 minutes to get there, especially if you're in a neighborhood. There goes, you're getting into 30 minutes from there. Yeah, 30, 35 minutes I think is reasonable. So just be aware of that too, that you're going to be having a further drive, and it's more of a start and stop drive, not just a quick on the interstate and you're going kind of thing. So to answer your question, hey Latoya, I enjoyed kayaking in Virginia Beach years ago. Very cool. Maybe it was near Virginia Beach. Well, that could be, it could be both. Where are you from? I hope you liked it here. Latoria, I'm sorry, I say Latoya, Latoria, I apologize. You're getting used to the jet noise eventually. Yeah, so good point about Bulldog Actual. So that is, oh man, depends on who you talk to. In my experience, the people that are from the southeast part of the city, they like you said, they kind of tune it out a lot of times. There are some people that notice it. If you ask neighbors, some will tell you that it's a problem, a big problem. Some don't care. And so I would say my solution to, if you're nervous about noise, is ask neighbors, but don't just ask one. I know it's more work, but I would ask multiple, because you're going to find people that won't care and you'll find people that will. And so if you ask the first one or two people and they both say it's okay, they may have been there long enough or just don't care as much about the noise and don't think it's a big deal. But for me personally, I think it's super annoying. So I'm not a huge fan of being that close to it myself. And so, yeah, just depending on who you talk to, you can probably get different answers there. But I agree that there are a lot of people that do get used to it too. So yeah, and also looking at the map too, southeastern Virginia Beach, over closer to what do you call it? Fentress Airfield's right here. So in Chesapeake, same thing. You'll have some jets all around here as well. Not as crazy as much as over in Oceania, but it definitely exists. So to answer your question, not sure if you even asked that question, but I'm telling you anyway. What's the average rent price in Virginia Beach for one person? Oh man, so one person. If you're doing one bedroom, I mean, you can get $1,000 probably. And it's just, there's so many. Average rent price, I would say, is probably more like $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 a month in more like the luxury apartment or apartment style. again, it just depends. But if you just want to get in, I'd say anywhere between 1,000 and 1,300. But it's definitely a location based type of a thing. So I wouldn't take that and just run with it. I would definitely do some more research before you come here if you're planning to come and planning to rent, if that makes sense. All Pro Lemon Tin Z. Hey, I feel like I may have seen you here, talk to you before. Was that true? Maybe not. But hey, nice to meet you. Okay, so moving back to what I was talking about before, as far as plans for moving here. We talked about some areas that I think are worth targeting separate from Virginia Beach. Suffolk is one of them right now. I'm kind of really digging Suffolk right now. Western Branch is another. Always kind of a fan of Western Branch. I would also consider the southwestern part of Virginia Beach. So if you're looking for like 325 to 450 range, you can get a real nice, well-built house, like 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,800, 2,000 square feet, for like, 430, something like that, 415, 400, 385. So that's very viable in here. I'm helping someone now in the same price range, get a house, 4 bedrooms, ranch style in the southwestern part of Virginia Beach. I'm a huge fan. So that being said, there are some hacks to finding some value. And one of which is, I'm not sure is very conventional, but I'd say it's worth targeting if you find the right house. So the first thing is going to be houses that have 1.5 baths. Why do I say that? Because houses in neighborhoods that might be 350, and I need to stop sharing my screen so I can talk to you and look at your faces. Hey, All Pro. Oh yeah, great content. Keep it. Thanks, All Pro. Yeah, I thought I'd talked to you before. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. So why do I say 1.5 baths? Well, number one is the reason is because a lot of people will want 2 baths. Okay, so what going after 1.5 baths does is it narrows down the amount of competition you have for a house. We'll talk about the competition levels in a minute, but that are happening right now. But it reduces the competition. Number one. Number two is that there aren't as many houses. So the house styles that have 1.5 baths are often a little bit smaller, so you can get a little bit cheaper. Another benefit. 3 is, while it's not a full bath, there's still 2 bathrooms. It's 1.5, but there's only 1 shower, tub, whatever. But it's still 2 separate bathrooms. So you can still usually have like a guest bathroom. It just isn't as big, or isn't a full bath like people often think that they want. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't get 2 baths, but what I found is that a 3 1.5, 4 1.5, usually 3 1.5, I found is the best combo. Is a bit less in demand than a 4-2, 3 2.5, 3-2, all those combos. You say, well, Sam, what happens then after resell it? I get that. There's always a trade-off, right? So if you find a house for 350, that's a 3-2. You might find a house that's 3 1.5 for 330, 325, something like that. And the demand won't be as high. You want it to be as aggressive if it's all done inside. So yes, if you sell it, it will be a slower or more difficult sell because of that reason. And so the reason why it's better for you to get in is the reason why it's harder to get out. So it's not a perfect thing, but I guess any kind of a market really, especially now, I think, because there just aren't as many houses on the market now, it's to me imperative to find those little nuggets that get you the house that you want, and you're giving up as little as possible to get that. So I like the 1.5 baths because sometimes when people move in, they realize, okay, I still have the 2 separate baths. It's not exactly what I wanted, but it works, and it's cheaper because right now, if it's instead of 350, it being 325, that's like $200+ a month you're saving. So part of this also comes down to how long you're owning the house and what you're planning to do with it. So there's a lot of different variables there. And let me switch my picture. You can't see me as much now. Oh, well, whatever. There. So if you're planning to stay there for a couple of years, neither is a great idea or an assumed perfect idea, because now the market has to go up the right amount to sell it. But turning it around, selling the house quickly, 3-2, and selling it for the best price is going to be 3-2. regardless of market, generally speaking. So that's where I'd say if it's a quicker thing, not as big of a thing going for a 3.1.5. But if you're doing a 3.1.5 and you plan to live there for, let's just say 15, 20 years or 10 years or whatever, obviously if it's really a big thing and you really want the 2 bathrooms, by all means get it. But maybe you can add a bathroom later. Maybe that can add some value, but also add some value to you personally. If the house design allows it. And I know people, my parents have they have a house that was originally a 3.1.5. And they added a room, added another bath. They have 2.5 baths now. And so that's another option as well. So it depends on what you're planning to do with the house. But again, this is not a solution that says, hey, this is a great way to pay less and get more. No, it's if you need to spend less, what is the best way to do that and get the most for what you're paying for? That's kind of how I look at that. So that's that. And again, back to where do you find that? Well, South Chesapeake, some spots in South Chesapeake, and also Southwest Virginia Beach. Those 50s and 60s houses, there are more of those options. And also less HOAs in those time periods, if any, I can think of in those time periods, which leads to the ability to do more additions to your house or do more things to the property without having to go through another entity to get permission to do that. So that's another benefit too. So I like all that. And they're brick houses a lot of times as well. Not all the time, but sometimes. So I would do that. That's number one. Number two is an interesting one that you stumble on every once in a while. And that is going to be if you have a house that you like that has paid off solar panels. Why is this important? Okay. People love or don't like solar panels. They're very polarizing. Well, I think the reason why people don't like them is because of how expensive they can be. They can be tens of thousands of dollars. And the payment, so you look at it and say, oh, okay, well, how much am I paying for the solar panels? How much am I making per month in solar panel, not paying my power, saving on my electric bill? That payment savings might be like $100. Okay, well, if you're paying tens of thousands of dollars to do that, you might not actually find it justifiable. But if you buy a house that has them paid off, that could be an idea to where you get the solar panels and you have $100 a month, maybe ish, give or take, off of your electric bill, not as much your mortgage as much, but you're saving $100 in your a power bill, which can again lead to like $10,000 worth of mortgage as far as payment goes. I'd say more like 100 or 13,000, $14,000 worth of mortgage. So a house that's 400 with solar panels, it's like paying a payment was like 387, something like that. So it depends on the interest rates and all that stuff. My point is here that getting a house with panels already paid off gives you a savings. And so you can get a house at market value even and get those solar panels built in. I think it's a great deal. So they exist. So I would consider that too as an option. All Pro, have you seen any increase in foreclosures? Interestingly enough, very, very little. I've seen some. They do show up, but what's funny is, again, the perception of foreclosures means savings. I did see one pop up yesterday. It was in Lake James, a townhouse in Lake James. It was $350, 2,000 square foot ish with a garage. Well, I love the neighborhood in Lake James, that the townhouses. Shoot, I'll show you where this. I'm going to show you exactly where this place was. So it's a little townhouse neighborhood near Lake James. I don't remember which street it was on in here. Pretty sure it was I think it was Brendel. I can't remember. It's one of these townhouses right here. So these houses go for are usually around 350. I'm sorry, 325, 335, 340, 345 now. They're big and they got a garage and they got multiple. I think they mostly have 4 bedrooms, but sometimes 3. But they're big. It's a big house. Very livable floor plan. Great location. I'm a huge fan of these. One of the best kept secrets to me in Virginia Beach. When I saw a house hit there that had a foreclosure on it, I got excited. I thought, oh man, great deal, right? Wrong. 350. So banks are pricing them when they do come up pretty market price ish. So just keep in mind, if you're ever buying or looking for at a foreclosure, do extra research to make sure it's actually a deal and it's not just this. It sounds like good because I got a foreclosure. You might be buying at a market value, and so in that case, you might as well buy it from somebody else sometimes, because you might have more ability to get more inspections done more easily. It depends. There's a lot of different variables there, but my point is that just don't assume that the foreclosure equals deal right now. So that leads me to next question I've got is, or in comments, things I'm noticing in the market. So obviously, everybody knows things have changed. Multiple offers. Well, I say multiple offers. 15 offers was the story 2 years ago. Not as much of a thing now. However, here's what's happening. There are less houses on the market. There are also less buyers that can buy because interest rates are closer to 8%. Oh my goodness. And can I just take this off? You're watching me learn in real there. Okay, that's better. So what was I saying? Oh, so less buyers, less houses for sale. Okay. Well, people are still buying, right? So what happens now is that we're getting through the summertime. August is usually pretty slow relative to other months. Kind of gives me an indication of what the fall will look like. People, because they can't find things that they like, when a house comes up that they actually do like, it still becomes very competitive. So still expect multiple offers for houses that you really like. It does not mean you have to do what you did 2 years ago and offer 80 over asking price. It's not that kind of a thing. Sometimes I've seen it in the last couple, 2-3 months. I've still seen that, especially more like in the higher price range, like 7, 8, 9, a million. When it's, again, very unique houses call for very unique things. And that still happens to a certain degree, but not nearly like it used to be. I'm seeing more price reductions. That does not necessarily mean that the market is, people think, oh, is the market crashing? No. What people are doing now is sellers are trying to test and see how high they can get that house to sell. And when it doesn't, they reduce the price. Well, if they just price it the way they maybe should have originally, they wouldn't have had to reduce the price in the first place. So sometimes those reductions in prices don't really indicate a market huge adjustment, but it indicates market stagnation or slowing down. So you'll find both house prices that will, houses that will still get multiple offers. You'll see some that will drop in price. Now, a lot of it now comes back down to how a house shows, how well a house shows. It's the things that sometimes help make a house sell that really didn't matter 2 years ago, because people are like, I'm just going to take whatever house I see to a certain degree. Now is people being more scrutinizing, but when they do like it, they are willing to be more aggressive. And I think part of that's because too, the more people are ready based on their experience in trying to buy a house in the last 2-3 years, or having bought a house in the last 2 or 3 years. Those people, if they do, or if they've learned from anybody else, they know some of the tricks that can help to get an offer accepted. And sometimes that leads to similar traits or things that happen in an offer process that may have happened 2 years ago. But it's just a toned down version of that to a certain degree. So, if a house is 400, it's very rare for that house to be 450 anymore. I wouldn't have been surprised if that happened, if that was the case 2 years ago. Now I'd say, 425, 415, 408, 405, that doesn't surprise me as much now, but that does exist. But I would say just be careful when you're making offers, and when you make offers, and how you do it. So you're just not like emotionally reacting to the first house you see that you like, unless you've seen a lot of houses and know, like, this is what I want. That's filling that out and trusting yourself too, to know what you like and don't like. But my point here is that I think we're in kind of a very unique middle state or tension between multiple years of gotta go fast, offer high, crazy, everything's not so fast, to now the news and people are saying, oh, no, don't give everything away. Be careful, never do this. We got different competing, I would say, not camps, if you will, of advice that can make it confusing to know what to do. And so that's where it comes down to, again, trust your real estate agent, number one. Number two is trust yourself and know your situation, know your personal situation, and don't stray away from what you feel confident in and what you're willing to pay for a house. But if you are consistently not getting houses that you want, you might need to adjust your plan of attack to get one that you want. So that's part of where you can start seeing trends. If you try a few times, you can kind of tell, hey, I'm maybe behind the market here. I need to change some things up. But there's a tension. So just be aware of that tension. And a lot of people are in those discussions. You know, the discussions that people have as to like how to make an offer, what do I do, how do I offer? You know, people are thinking through that stuff, because when interest rates were 3%, people didn't care as much about those little details. When now the interest rates are 8%, 7.75%, 8.25%. I mean, imagine your house is, if you have a $500,000 house right now and you're putting 5% down, your monthly payment is going to probably be, if I'm going to guess, around $3,800, $3,700. And if you're in the mortgage business, again, I will defer to the mortgage world to tell me specifically. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. This is not financial advice or mortgage advice at all. Please check with your lenders to get specifics. But my point here is that that's where we're talking. In the upper 3,000s range, and that price range is not unheard of and very common right now. So last 2 years ago, house $500,000 house, if it was 3%, now you're talking closer to like, goodness, where are we at? 2,500 a month, 25. Yeah. You're paying like 40-50% more. So again, that being said, that same house that you bought for $500,000 2 years ago isn't worth $500 anymore. It's $650. It's $630. So it's not the same comparison. So really the same house is going to cost twice as much right now. So I'd say just factor all that stuff in. Now, this is where I would say a couple things about the interest rates, and this can help you if you're planning to buy in the next few months. Again, number one is don't feel rushed, because I don't perceive the market to change that much going into the end of the fall, into the wintertime. And I say market change that much, I'm talking about significant price changes going up. There's going to be a little bit of a bump in the fall, is my guess. Even if rates didn't change, because since there aren't many houses on the market, September, October-ish, there's always a little bit of a bump in there in that range. And usually it's like October time period, but it kind of changes each year a little bit. But there's always a little bit of a bump before the end of the year. But if interest rates stay high, that won't be as much of a bump. However, the bump in the fall is never nearly as strong as the bump in the spring. So if you're looking for a house and you're going to definitely be buying, it may not be a bad idea to look in the fall. And I mean fall, I'm talking anywhere from now until the end of the winter time or end of Christmas time, because especially if rates change, go down, there won't be as many people that are willing to be aggressive for a house with those lower rates, because there aren't as many people that want to move in the fall. School's back in session. No one wants to, people want to take off vacation in Christmas time. They don't want to move in October. They're going to, I can't take off work or whatever. So all that stuff, it leads to sometimes some better deals can slip through. Let me tell you more questions. Sorry. You'll see more. My point is, you'll see more potential deals slip through, or even competitive houses won't be nearly as competitive, just because there just aren't as many people that will be willing to take advantage of the changes in the market. You hear the whole thing about, date the rate, marry the house. I get that. I'm not convinced that the rates are going to drop. I think they probably will eventually. I think at some point they're going to have to. But I don't know. A lot of the lenders thought that the rates were going to drop in the fall in the 5s and 6s. Wrong. We're still in the upper 7s. So I would say that just be prepared for a longer, higher interest rate trend, maybe into the 2024 time period, until we know for sure more about inflation and The jobs reports were going to come back today. I have not heard about that yet, so that's another thing that will often affect interest rates potentially into the end of this week and into the rest of the coming into early September. So the jobs is a big deal too, and inflation. So those things will change and could affect how much they might drop. But just be very aware of the fact that the fall is a very prime time to buy. If you're going to be buying between now and the springtime, I would maybe lean to try in the fall if you can, just because it'll be just more competitive in the fall. So Elway 2K. Oh, I know who your favorite team is. I have a Terrell Davis jersey somewhere. I can't. Anyway, I vacation every year in Sandridge and love it. Cool. I would love to move there sometime in the future. Do you live in Colorado? What are your thoughts on the housing market there in Sandridge? Do you mean specifically Sandridge? If you do, so it depends. If you're planning to move and stay, I'm a big fan. If you're planning to buy as like an investment property, that area is not bad, but because of just the general rental or the Airbnb market here, I just be a little careful. Like as far as where in Sandbridge, and then kind of checking your rates and like your margins and all that. It's usually a great spot for Airbnb, or not Airbnb, well, for Verbo and all that, because it's one of the few places that will do that here. So if you notice, if you're looking into buying a house just for an investment property, that is very few places in Virginia Beach will allow Airbnbs, which really cuts down on the opportunity for people to buy just to Airbnb. And so I'm usually very hesitant to suggest to people to buy and to also do investment properties like Airbnb, short-term rentals, because until the city really clamps down or figures out what they want to do with Airbnb, I was always saying, hey, just don't buy with that intention because it might not be available for very long. I think at this point, we're starting to see the city settle into a groove as to very specific spots. One of them, I believe, unless things will change, will continue to be Sandbridge, and it's just kind of a destination spot. I like Sandbridge a lot. Not every spot also, some of it requires flood insurance, so just be aware of when you see a price of like 1.2, for example, as opposed to like, look at 1.2, for example. It might also need flood insurance, but the assumption might be, oh, I'm near the beach. Of course I do. Well, not always. There are some places in Sandbridge that also don't need flood insurance. And that's the thing about this area in general is, even though if you're close to the beach, you might not actually need flood insurance, or if you're close to water, you might, but you might not. Some of the places around here are higher off the water. It depends on where the tide is, and excuse me, not every place near the water needs it. So don't assume that it does, but if it does, just be prepared for that extra little bump in payment and all that stuff. But as a general rule, though, I like Sandbridge. Again, it's pretty exclusive. And I just would say again, like, just don't buy a house in Sandbridge without definitely checking the rental market if you're planning to do that, as far as like where in Sandbridge is better, like if beachside or not. Of course, beachside is way more expensive, but even then, it's like, just make sure you check your numbers. They were really working well margin wise to me a couple of years ago. Of course, rates were lower, but if you're going to be doing it with a loan now, it might not be as profitable, or wouldn't be as profitable in my opinion. Yeah, I'm a big Sandbridge fan. If you want beach, again, I personally am not a beach fan as far as going there. But I like the fact that Sandbridge itself is so unique, because there's a lot of beaches around here, but nothing quite like Sandbridge. One other thing about Sandbridge, once you leave Sandbridge, it can flood on the roads nearby as you drive out. So that's one thing that can be kind of annoying. Anyway, so George, Kodatek. So, hey, George, do you see West Neck as a good place to buy a house for over 55? So, funny you say that, because there aren't that many 55 and up communities in Virginia Beach. So from that standpoint, if that's a preference, I would say that's going to be one of your only options. There are a couple of others. That's probably the most prominent one. They're also the cheapest. You're probably talking, man, now that I think about it, I don't know if there are any others that are like it. Unless you're talking maybe closer to Williamsburg, Williamsburg has some, but that's another hour from West Neck, so I'm not sure if that's what you really want. But yeah, central location. It's going to feel a bit mixed as far as rural and not. You're kind of in a part of the area that is, it's changed a lot over time. I mean, there's a lot of newer stuff happening around there. You're seeing more built up around there. It's just that you'll see field new, like, kind of like, it's like a very small microcosm of Suffolk, but it's like a couple miles, not a huge part of town. So that would be the one thing, just as far as like the vibe around there. But I'm generally a huge fan of being in that area. I think it's a pretty, there's new construction around the area that's going for over $1 million at this point. Around 995 million. Yeah. There's some new construction, Kingston Estates. Yeah. About $1 million. So yeah, I don't know if that helps, but yeah, it's one of the few. And if you're looking, although alternatively, if it's under 55, over 55, and you also want to be closer to a golf course, West Neck is close to one too, I guess. But alternatively, there's one, Colonial Heritage is on the north side in Williamsburg that has a golf course attached as well. But yeah, George, you're very welcome. We're at 45 minutes in. I want to make one more comment. I've talked about when to buy. I threw that out there already. I kind of blended a couple things in. Talked about suggestions. Oh, this is from How to Move. Sorry, I was talking about suggestions of places to move. The one thing I want to mention about suggestions for how to move that I think would be helpful if you're planning to move from wherever you are is, if you have the time, as prices have changed, the options for each price range to get what you want has, I wouldn't say dwindled is a strong word, but it kind of has dwindled to a certain degree. Meaning, if your budget is $800 and you want to be in Virginia Beach, okay, well, there are some neighborhoods that can work, but you can't get as much for $800 now as maybe you had thought you wanted about a year ago. Like, that price, that payment for that house has changed. So while if you want to keep Virginia Beach as an option in that price range, for example, and this is any price range, but I would expand, if you can, expand your options to as many parts of the area around Virginia Beach as possible. And that could be anywhere from Virginia Beach to Williamsburg, New Kent even, but really Yorktown, Newport News, Hampton, down to Suffolk. Jamestown is up there near Williamsburg, or down near Hampton in that area. But also Suffolk, I mentioned that. I mentioned Chesapeake before. Just expand as much as you can, because you might find that you can save about $50,000, $100,000, and get the same house that you might have paid way more for, and not gotten the same type of house that you would have thought you could get. And so that type of information and that understanding of the area, I think, will come in handy more now that there might be a need to expand horizons more to other parts of the area and decide, okay, do I want to be in Virginia Beach? If I do, how much am I willing to spend? If I can't, if I don't want to even pay to be in Virginia Beach, should I go to Williamsburg? Should I go to Suffolk? Should I go to Hampton? And I would increase that map range, which then leads to, it might take an extra day or two to do research in town if you're planning to come here to visit. I would strongly suggest coming here one time at least to visit, especially if you're coming like in the 300 price range or under, 350 and under, because it's going to be very specific to area as to what you like and don't like. I would definitely come for that reason, just to check first if you can. And I would definitely take, like, first, originally was 2 years ago, a year ago, I was saying maybe 2 days, 3 days. Now I'm thinking more like, I would say 4 days is probably more reasonable to get a full perspective of the areas that you might like, as much as you can. And if you're coming here and you're planning to do a search, let me know, and I'll make a route for you of different different styles of houses or different things that you might like. Tell me like what you like. I'll make a route for you of places to drive, that as you go through town, you can hit each place and see, okay, if I'm paying $575 in Chesapeake, what does that look like in the type of house that I want? Okay, if I go from here over to Portsmouth, over to Norfolk, what does that look like? So you can get a range. I can kind of bracket it for you: 450, 550, 320, whatever it is. So that will at least help you give you a better, proper perspective on the area, but focus the attention on the areas that you actually want or need to know more about. If that makes sense. So I can do that for you too. But I would definitely, if you can take 4 days, I would stay in a very central part of town. So I would say if you're like we're considering Williamsburg, I would consider if you're going to do in the peninsula side, I would check out like City Center near Newport News. That's a good central spot. And also down into if you're going down towards Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Norfolk side, I would check out places like Central, like even Greenbrier in Chesapeake, or even Central Virginia Beach, because you can get from there to Suffolk relatively easily. It's not going to be simple, but it gives you an access point there. And also, if you're considering Virginia Beach and comparing it to Suffolk, like I mentioned before, you can see how far that is. And so I think that's another important part too. So that helps there. But I definitely think coming here and spending a little bit extra time will go a long way to confirming if you want to move here, if it's by choice, or confirming where you want to move if you're coming here for a job or for whatever reason that requires you to come here. So is there a decade, Sammy Sam, hey, nice to meet you. Is there a decade that houses in the area were built that seems to have consistently good or bad quality? For example, avoid 70s houses, 90s are solid, etc. Okay, so some is personal preference, but I love 50s and 60s houses. I think they're very well built personally. I mean, there are drawbacks, like uh, cast iron pipe is still a thing then, but they're very strong built houses. I like those houses, and there are also a lot of them are brick. 70s is a mixed bag from my experience. So I would say of all of them, not as big of a fan of early 70s. One of the benefits, though, of the late 70s is that it's just before, let's see, there are a couple of things. Branch wiring, aluminum branch wiring stopped. I think it was like in 75. And I need to talk to my inspector and ask him to make sure. I think it stopped in 75. So the older wiring, newer wiring started, I think it was like 79, 8, or I'm sorry. Let me start over. 75, I think it was the end of that older wiring. And Quest piping, I believe, started in 1980, if I'm correct. The window in the end of the 70s is nice that you don't have either of those issues. So it's kind of a nice little window. I think it was maybe just 77, 78 range. So a little bit of a tidbit there. So, but in general, I like 80s houses. Personal preference, I found a lot of good results from people that have bought from houses in the 80s, like in the Virginia Beach area, but not that much better than the 90s, to be honest with you, from what I can tell. But I like those 60s, 50s houses. I just think they're built really well. And they're just not perfect, right? Because well built doesn't mean doesn't require repairs, because it's well built. Eventually things are going to need to be replaced. So be prepared for that. But I think they're just I think very well built houses. So depends on what your goals are. If you don't want maintenance, you might want something newer anyway. But I wouldn't do like well, you can. It's just for the maintenance idea aspect. 2002, 3, 4, 5 is that turn of the ages of all those expensive things like roof, HVAC, water heater. What am I missing? Windows. All those things start needing to be replaced. So you might find I'm getting a house that is nice inside, but I have to spend $35,000 on a roof, HVAC, water heater, windows, or whatever stuff. So it can get kind of costly, and you'll get some appraisal value or appreciation, equity. Benefit a little bit, but it's not as high as I think people might assume. So it helps some, but it's not going to just shoot. It's not like dollar for dollar. You know what I'm saying? So just keep that in mind too. So I'm a big fan of the 50s and 60s, but early 70s I probably is my least favorite if I'm going to put a time on it. I'm sorry. No. Well, mid 70s, 74, 75. I'm going through neighborhoods in my mind. As I'm thinking this through, I like a lot of the 80s neighborhoods, but there are some that I don't like, some in the 80s, 80s houses. Another thing about the older houses, like the 20s, 30s in Norfolk, like those older houses, so strong houses, But back to the repair stuff, again, more surprises come up there. So I think I think they're very well built, quality wise. But again, I think that's going to even be more of a maintenance type of a thing. Just be prepared for maintenance. So kind of depends on how important you want the structure of the house to feel compared to what you might need to spend to preserve the ancillary things or the required things around in the house that don't affect the quality of the construction, if you will. So anyway, so we're coming to the 55-minute mark here, just past it. So I'm going to wrap things up now. If you have any questions, just throw them down there below. Or if you have any questions and you're watching afterwards, first of all, thank you for watching. If you're watching and you're watching the replay, drop a comment below, or you can email me, you can call me, you can text me. I'll put my phone number here. There's my phone. That's not my phone number. That's my phone number. That's my phone number there. Call me at any point. I love talking about houses, helping people relocate here. That's what I do. I help people relocate to anywhere from Williamsburg down to Virginia Beach, Toronto down to Newport News. I help a lot of people going to Langley, people going to Newport Navy Base, going to Oceana, Fort Eustis, all the bases, Coast Guard and near Suffolk, as well as relocating for businesses, people coming here for all kinds of things, towards the beach, whatever, family. Just let me know. I can help talk you through maybe what might be the best option, how to plan, like I talked about before, things to do when you get here, how to plan to get here, when you get here, and all that. And then you can also email me as well here, my name at myfullname.com. And then so you can check that out. And I'll also put my website there. A lot of Sam Sansalone stuff here. So myfullname.com. But again, feel free to email me, call me, text me, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. I say that every video, and I love doing these videos. So I want to keep doing them. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you on the next one.